Hey everyone, and welcome to a new Video Attic new release roundup. I'm your host, Michael Vaughn, and as always, I'm not alone when discussing these really awesome films. But before we introduce him, I want to give a really quick shout out to the t-shirt that I'm wearing is for my show, Return of the Living Geeks. And if you want to snag a shirt of your own, I will put a link in the description, and there's currently a code for 15% off.
What a bargain. Definitely jump on that. And yes, I am here as well. I am Dylan Gonzalez. I am a senior critic for GeekVibesNation.com and also a co-host of the Home Dance Film Festival podcast. And as always, I am so excited to be here with Mike today discussing some new and exciting releases.
Yeah, we got some good ones.
Yes, which I will jump into right away. One that I'm very excited about is a new one from the Criterion Collection coming out soon is Martin Scorsese's The Last Waltz on 4K Ultra HD. I'll give you a quick look at the interior packaging. It's got both a Blu-ray and 4K disc. The disc is in Dolby Vision. And got a fold-out booklet here. I'll open that up a little bit more for you. So it's got a nice fold-out.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. With a new essay, and I'll show you a little bit more of the interior, like inside art. Yes, so I was excited whenever Criterion announced this release because I'd seen The Last Waltz several years ago and I enjoyed it a lot. But in the meantime, I've really grown to be a bigger fan of the band that is featured in the movie. I watched this documentary from a couple years ago called Once We're Brothers, Robbie Robertson and the band, which gave me a lot more context to the band. So viewing this film again now with that context and like knowing some of the key figures of their life, it really packed like a bigger emotional impact for me, like seeing like Ronnie Hawkins, who they had started out with even before the band was the band, like come on stage to do some numbers with them was like a really fun experience just with that new context. And like, yes, this is mostly a concert film, but it is some of the best music, like one of the best films of all time, in my opinion. You have people like Van Morrison, Bob Dylan, Joni Mitchell, Emmylou Harris. There's a ton of people like in this film, and the songs are simply amazing. There's a song called The Night They Drove Old Dixie Down, which just the confluence of just sounds and harmonies and just I've heard it like on the main, like the actual album it was released on before, but just hearing it in this live setting is just like transcendent, and I loved it. And Scorsese really just knows, like, even though it is a concert film, he finds just like the perfect places to shoot and like capture these perfect moments, which are really represented well on this new disc. It has a new 4K restoration. And the 4K release itself, it looks great. Like when I heard it was being released in 4K, that kind of surprised me because it's not seemingly the typical film you might think of for 4K. But after seeing it, it's just like, it looks so great. The grain resolves really naturally. All of the damage has been cleaned up. It just, the colors like are deeper and more nuanced. Like it's not like a Technicolor film or anything, but just like the blacks are deeper and like no like crush or anything. And it's just really, really nice. It's a nice looking release. And it's also jam-packed with a lot of great features. There's 2 commentary tracks, one with Scorsese and Robbie Robertson woven together, and then another one with about 15 people, like the rest of the members of the band, and like some people who played on the show, some executive producers, some film historians. There's a lot of great context within it. It's a really great release. There's a new conversation with Martin Scorsese and one of the editors of Rolling Stone that's like 30 minutes long, and it's a really great conversation just looking back. There's several more interviews with Scorsese and Robbie Robertson. I cannot say enough great things about this release. I love this movie, and this release just made me appreciate it so much more. Like, even if you're not a fan of the band, I think you'll get a greater appreciation from seeing this documentary or this concert film / documentary, because it sure increased my appreciation of them.
Yeah, that's cool. I'll have to check that out. Like, because I've never heard of that band, but I'll yeah, it sounds awesome. So definitely have to check that out. So my first pick is definitely a polar opposite, and that is Shakedown from Kino Studio Classics.
Awesome.
And a view of the back. So yeah, this was one that I've actually never even heard of. It's a fun little film noir. It's not as stylish and maybe rich in complexity as other noirs, but it's a really entertaining film. And it has one of these, I mean, obviously I'm not going to spoil it, but it has one of these amazingly bitter, ironic endings that sort of like makes it. It comes from a new 2K master, and you know, there's a little bit of artifacts here and there, but I feel like overall it's a really crisp, clean-looking film. The contrast in the black and white is balanced really well here. Yeah, it's like I said, it's a little underrated gem, I think. It's really fun to see Howard Duff in this sort of really sleazy photographer role. Fans might remember Duff from other movies like The Naked City or like stuff like Kramer versus Kramer. He had like such a really diverse filmography, but yeah, it's a lot of fun. Definitely worth checking out.
Awesome. That sounds really interesting. Like, I've been on a more of a film noir kick the past couple of years, so that sounds, especially those endings that really gut you, like that sounds right up my alley. So. Yeah,
it's so funny. It's like the like he basically gets in sort of like this involved with like these like mob people, and it's like, how is he not like dead like 3 times over? But the movie actually does a really good sort of reasoning, like how he sort of like weasels his way into this like racket he finds himself in. I'm being very vague about the plot because I think it's pretty interesting. All you really need to know is he's a very unscrupulous photographer.
Yes.
So
is there any other kind? Right?
Yeah. I'm sure there's some good ones out there, but
nope, not a single one.
Well, you heard it here first, folks.
Yes, I'm throwing that out there. All right, my next movie is one that I was very skeptical about when I first heard about it, but a little guy named Spielberg really pulled it off, and that is West Side Story on 4K Ultra HD. So yeah, everyone knows that the original is a classic. I have it up here. Maybe you can see on Blu-ray. And I just watched it a couple weeks ago because it had been about a decade plus since I'd watched it, the original. And like, it still holds up, but I do think Spielberg did a really nice job with this film. I think what works so well, especially with this release, with this film, is that the work of Tony Kushner and the like re-examination of the plot and how he restructured it and like gave deeper context to it, it just really kind of enriched the story that much more. I wouldn't necessarily say it's better than the original, but I think it proves why it was like not in need, but worthy of being recontextualized by someone with a mastery of film like Spielberg. And his work with Janusz Kaminski, the cinematographer, to like get these really like stylized shots that really pop in 4K. He does lean a little bit heavy on like the lens flare, but it's just like, it's an interesting, Kaminski is a cinematographer who really just goes in like for really bold choices, and they don't always work out, but they are interesting enough to like keep you transfixed, and it really pops here in 4K. And this release also has a Dolby Atmos track that sounds really nice. I know sometimes Disney releases are kind of, they say it's like been at-moused, so kind of like neutered a little bit. But it seems like they're a little bit better with their 20th century releases. And this one sounded really nice and rich. And like I said with The Kingsman a couple of weeks ago, that one had a really nice special feature presentation. This one also does. This has a 98-minute documentary on the making of the movie where they go like into the casting, breaking down of like individual sequences, like their decision to like how they pay tribute to the original text and how they're like changing it up. It's just like a really detailed documentary, and it's really cool. And I'll give you a quick look at the inside. I have it upside down, but there we go. And yes, so yeah, and comes with a nice slip cover. It's the same as the original. But this is a really nice release from Disney and 20th Century Studios. The film, it's nominated for Best Picture right now, so I'm not the only one who thinks it's a good effort. The songs are great. The performances are great. I think it's just a really, really strong effort. And if you were skeptical of it being remade, I would give it at least a chance. There's of course the Ansel Elgort factor that kind of hinders some people's enjoyment of the film, and he's the probably least talented of all the performers, but he alone cannot sink a movie, and overall I think it's a really solid film.
Awesome. My next film is maybe one that's not as well known, National Champions. And I'll give you a slip cover here. Well, there is a digital code that's not currently in there, but that's that one. I had never heard of this film, and I think it's interesting, but it didn't really connect with me. It's the basic plot is about players in college football that want to be better paid. They want like better health care, and it really speaks about this sort of billion-dollar industry that is not really taking care of their players like they should. And I think it's a really interesting subject matter. It's just the film comes off a little like tepid and shallow. Like it has something interesting to say. It just doesn't do it in a way that I feel is like really memorable or effective. That being said, J.K. Simmons is really great. I think the other leads are also like excellent. I didn't feel like there was anybody phoning it in. But, again, it just didn't really speak to me. Like there are, as you can see, like there's some bonus features. And again, maybe people that are a little bit more into like sports might connect with it more. That might have been some of my disconnection, but I feel like a good movie should draw you in, even if you're not particularly into like subject matter. Like there's other sports movies that I really connect with, even though I'm not like necessarily like a big sports guy. So, but yeah, still check it out. It's a newer film, so certainly looks really nice on Blu-ray. It's not a very colorful film, but it definitely has a lot of nice clarity, and the contrasting in colors is done really well. Shot on digital, so the up convert to 1080p is quite nice. And it has a 5.1 track, which actually is really nice with something like this, because there are like some big bombastic like elements that certainly like help it have a nice sort of surround sound feel. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I really felt that whenever they went into like that is when I got to be recently, like whenever they go into like crowded like clubs or bars or stuff, that really comes alive. What I was really surprised about, I really knew nothing about this film going into it, is that there was like no actual football played within the film, and it's just all kind of like a straightforward like standoff basically, because I've heard about this issue for years of just like how college players, they're not allowed to be be paid for their efforts, and there's this like this point, like you're saying, that they're trying to make, that just like these people make so much money that it's ridiculous that they can't even support themselves sometimes, because they can't, if they accept stuff from like recruit, like any sponsors or anything, they can like get kicked off the team or whatever. So it's a really interesting subject matter, but like you said, it is a little bit underbaked in execution, but it's still, I think it's trying to raise an important issue.
Yeah, and that's right. I mean, definitely. Like I do appreciate the fact that it is highlighting something like this. Maybe like this would have been better in a documentary form, but yeah, I mean, some people seem to like it, so I would say still check it out, but yeah, it really wasn't for me.
I get it. Yeah. I mean, I'm not a huge sports guy either, and there are sports movies that do a better job of like giving us an avenue to actually care, like really care.
Yeah.
I am also representing another new movie now, and that is the new Denzel Washington directed film, A Journal for Jordan, with Michael B. Jordan and Shantae Adams. This one came out around Christmas, and this was another one I didn't really know a lot about, but I was intrigued because Denzel had directed it. And I was surprised to learn that this was actually inspired by a real life event. It's based off a memoir from this, I think she's like the head of Scholastic Books now. At the time, she was like a New York Times reporter who had the film starts out with you knowing that her husband has been killed in combat. And she is a new mother, and she is trying to juggle like working, like being like a businesswoman with being a new mother. And like she starts documenting like memories of her husband for her son Jordan. So, and the movie kind of flashes back to that initial like courtship, getting to know each other romance, and like how that goes to the present day, and then a little bit further into the future once Jordan becomes a little bit older and starts like kind of questioning who his father was and all that type of stuff. It's not a perfect movie, but I think it's a really solid like adult romance. I think what really works is that Michael B. Jordan and Shantae Adams, they have a nice like familial chemistry. Like they seem very warm towards one another, but their relationship is based in kind of like a opposites attract type situation. They're so different from one another, but that's kind of some of the interesting like dynamics moving towards like where we see them in the future, like, and the struggles that they have to navigate. So the best parts are their romance and like them getting to know each other and falling for one another. But this film also doesn't like skimp on the actual like tragic aspects of like being a military wife and like losing someone and how you're supposed to cope after tragedy. It's just a really like just solemn, but like still mostly life affirming, and like it talks about questions of like honor and duty that are really interesting. So yeah, I would give it like a solid 3 or 3.5 out of 5. It's not a perfect movie, but it's a solid adult drama. The picture, like it's a new film, so picture looks great. It's Sony, so they always have great encode, a nice 5.1 soundtrack. It has some like interviews that are really great, and yet some deleted scenes, a gag reel, because you got to lighten up this material sometimes on set. So if you're a fan of Michael B. Jordan, or if you've seen any of Denzel Washington's earlier work, like The Great Debaters or Antoine Fisher, you kind of get the sense of what he's like capable of here. It's not quite to the level of something like Fences, which earned like a Best Picture nomination, but it's just a really solid adult drama, and I think it's worth checking out.
Awesome. So my next one is actually a drama as well, and that is Hester Street. And this one's a really interesting one. So this one's kind of it's interesting because Carol Kane has had so many amazing film work, but this is her only Oscar nomination, to date. And so this is from Kino and Cohen Films, and this is the back. It has a nice array of features, as you can see, and it's really fascinating. So it's basically about Russian Jewish immigrants that come to America in the late 1800s, and their journey to sort of basically fitting in and Americanizing as much as they can. And it's a pretty decent movie. I will say you certainly can see that it's very Oscar baity. It's like filmed in black and white. It's maybe a little bit over dramatic for its own good, but I will say that it, as a showcase for Kane's performance, it's great. Like, she does a lot with just looks, the way she reacts to things, but in a really nuanced way. It also has some really interesting supporting roles, like Doris Roberts, and Lynn Shay shows up as a sex worker.
Whoa, okay.
So there's that. And it's really great looking. It comes from a new 2K master. And it's really fascinating. Like, the movie only got the one Oscar nomination. That was just solely for her performance, which is kind of rare in the Oscar circles, of only getting like one of the major Oscar categories. And again, I can kind of see where it's really not a Best Picture contender, but it is really engaging, and the performances are probably what is the glue that holds this together. So I always really like discovering films like this that I've never heard of, but I'm a huge fan of Carol Kane, so I wanted to see this, and it's fascinating because I only really know her from comedy films, like Addams Family Values, or
work with Mel Brooks and stuff.
Yeah, I'm blanking on the Scrooge movie with Bill Murray. Scrooged, yeah.
Yeah.
Scrooged, yeah.
You're right there. You're right there.
I was like, oh, yeah. But yeah. I mean, it's kind of wild though that she's had almost 200 performances in film and television, and this is like the only time that she was recognized for that talent. And yeah, she's phenomenal. So if you haven't, give it a watch. It's an interesting one. It's a little bit depressing, but yeah.
Well, I actually had heard of this movie because I have this old release.
Wow.
Kino Classics. I had it within arm's reach, so I decided to grab it.
Nice.
Kino Classics put that out several years ago with Scorpion releasing. And I got it like probably 2 years ago in one of their sales. And I was like, yes, Carol Kane, I need to see this. And it's went unwatched until now. And now this new release is out. I'm like, okay, new 4K restoration. Do I spring on it and have a new 4K restoration be my first viewing, or do I need to give it a watch first? I don't know what to do. I have an addiction, so I'll probably just get the new release. But I was just like, when I saw it was released, I was like, of course, I haven't even gotten around to the original release. So
yeah, that's interesting.
This doesn't even have any special features. This nothing. You get all new special features.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I was just going to ask. It does. It definitely. Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah, and the supplemental stuff is really nice. I will say that it, like the interviews, the commentary, it all really helps you sort of get a better understanding of the film, like a lot of context behind the material, which I found really fascinating. Yeah, I mean, again, it has its flaws, but it is a really interesting watch, and the performances are great. And, I love Lin Shaye. Like, I feel like we all stan her. So,
yeah.
Seeing her little cameo in that was fun. And again, I did a double take when Doris Roberts shows up.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that alone I feel like is worth it. So.
Awesome. All right. I'll probably have to get it. All right. My next release, sticking with newer stuff, but going to television now, and that is the season 2 release of The Walking Dead World Beyond, which, okay, I know everyone is probably kind of sick of the Walking Dead franchise now. It's been going on forever. There's numerous spinoffs, but I think this is a pretty solid show, and this is the second season, but it is also the final season because they envisioned this as a limited series, 2-season series, and now the story is concluded. The first season, I will admit, kind of started off rocky. It was felt like kind of like a CW show where it was focusing strictly on teenagers, and it was kind of what are the stakes here almost? It kind of seemed kind of soapy, but it started getting better and better as the season went along. And then I think it really ties together nicely in the second season. It picks up after our protagonists have reached their destination and reunited, or some of them have reunited with a loved one. I don't want to give up too much away for people who haven't seen it, but there's a reunion. But there's also, with this new place, becomes some darker aspects. And that is where the season really kind of excels, because one of the things that's weird about these Walking Dead shows is there's very little focus on zombies these days. It's mostly how the people are it's the depth of humanity and how people the darkness inside people and how it corrupts them. But I think there's always been a little bit of that in zombie films. The people are the horror of the stuff. And I'm not going to get too much into the zombie theory. But there's a lot of that in the second season of corrupt organizations and what is ethical and special testing stuff and different things. So it takes some really interesting directions, and it does incorporate, this isn't really a spoiler because I won't say who, but it does include one of the a cast member from the Mothership Walking Dead series that pops up, and I was not expecting it. I was like, oh, okay, I didn't think this was going to be connected. That's interesting. So that gave me a little bit of a thrill. I was like, oh, that's really cool how it's not a huge shift, they cram this person in there. It's kind of a natural evolution. So I appreciated that.
Nice.
Yeah, so this release is really good. It's a 3-disc set. It has a few special features, but if you just want to round out your Walking Dead collection, I think this is a nice addition from RLJE Entertainment.
Nice. Yeah, so my next one is called 13 Fanboy. So this was another one that I had not heard of prior to this release. But, I started to do a little bit of research, and it actually was a crowdfunded film. And it takes a very meta approach to the Friday the 13th fandom. It's directed by Deborah Voorhees, who was Tina in Friday the 13th, The New Beginning. And it has a lot of like actors that like are playing versions of themselves, like CJ Graham, who was Jason in part 6. Kane Hodder doesn't play himself, but he does play a different character. But like, it also has like other not like Corey Feldman's also in it. He was, of course, in like part 4 and a little bit of part 5. And yeah, so it's a flawed movie, but if you are a hardcore horror fan, it is really fun. Like, it does have a lot of really nice like meta moments. It didn't really connect with me, but I did appreciate and find some aspects really interesting, like the sort of meditation on like fans maybe taking their love to the extreme, like people like that actually unfortunately get stalkers. It's but really, I mean, the vast majority of horror fans are perfectly normal, but you have like a few that maybe go a little overboard. So that aspect of it was really interesting. I didn't feel like it worked narratively like the way I thought it maybe could have, without any spoilers. But yeah, it's interesting enough. So this comes from Mill Creek. It doesn't have any features, unfortunately. This is one that I think really could have done with like some interviews, a commentary. But there you have it. The transfer is not bad. It is just 720p quality because it's DVD. I believe it's just DVD only. But being a newer film, like the upconvert to digital is actually pretty good. It looks, for the most part, pretty fresh. Being like shot on digital and being a newer kind of film. So yeah, it's not bad. I know some people liked it, so definitely check it out.
Awesome. My next movie is a new one I was really excited about from Kino Classics, and that is Man on the Moon with Jim Carrey playing Andy Kaufman. The first time I watched this movie, I was unsure about it, but I've grown to really appreciate it, just because of the mastery of both the performance from Jim Carrey in one of his best performances and the director of Milos Forman. I think they work off one another so well, and just like the screenplay from Scott Alexander and Larry Karaszewski, who I've always really appreciated. He contributed a commentary track along with Cameron Crowe to that recent Paramount Presents Harold and Maude release, which was a lot of fun. But he's also just like a really talented screenwriter with a very complicated last name for me. So yeah, this one is really, like, if you haven't seen Man on the Moon, I really recommend it. This is like Jim Carrey at his most dedicated. If you've seen the documentary Jim and Andy, you see that it almost went to like a uncomfortable, like problematic level of like inhabiting a character. But the results, like, you don't want to like say like you did what was right, but it's a really, really great performance of just this really complicated figure of Andy Kaufman. And like, there's so much like mystery surrounding him and his life. It's handled really well in this release, and like just like the nuances of this comedic genius who he's just such a like an enigma. This comes with a new 2K restoration, which looks really great. I was very excited that it actually got a new restoration. It has like a new commentary track with the two screenwriters. It has some music videos, like the REM video for Man on the Moon. It has some deleted scenes and some nice featurettes. If you order early, you can get the slipcover. It's the same. There is not double-sided art. It's just the disc. But always love a slipcover. I'm a sucker for it. So yeah, if you are a fan of the film, this is a really great release. I'm so glad it finally got a Blu-ray release because it's just been missing in action and it was a crime pretty much. But yeah, if you love this movie, you need to own it on like HD Blu-ray. So definitely check that out.
Nice. Yeah, that's awesome. It's definitely one that is, I think, one of the more like exciting releases coming out this month because yeah, it is such a fantastic movie. So my next film is just from Kino and Greenwich, and that is Let Me Be Me. And again, it's another film that's sort of I had never heard of, but it's really fascinating. So it's about a fashion designer, but it also, the fashion designer happens to be on the autism spectrum. So it sort of kind of folds those two things in, and so there's an aspect of it that I kind of don't want to give away, but because it's something that I thought was really fascinating and I didn't really know going in. But, that's kind of why I'm like leaving the overall like plot vague. But that's really like the two things you need to know. So it is really fascinating though. It's not very long. It is just about like 70 minutes and it's a really like breezy watch, 75 minutes. And, unfortunately, like no like features. It does have a nice 5.1 track. It does look really nice. Again, being like a newer film, it looks really nice and clean. No like issues, like the colors really pop, especially like when they like showcase his like work, which is like at times really colorful. So yeah, it's fascinating though. If you are really like, if you're into fashion or you kind of, find like the underdog stories really compelling, which I do, it's certainly it was a really interesting movie. I really liked it.
Awesome. I was really intrigued by that one. It sounded like I really love documentaries, so I'm definitely going to have to seek that out at some point.
Yeah. It's like I said, it's nice. And I really liked how, it's very personal. Like they interview his family. They of course interview Kyle as a subject, and they talk to him quite extensively, of course. But yeah, it's like that kind of personal touch that really makes it a sort of like really awesome journey.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So this kind of goes in tandem with the release that you talked about a month ago, I think, whenever you talked about the William Friedkin version of 12 Angry Men. This is another film, like same vein, and that is the 1999 adaptation of Inherit the Wind, which is another take on this other movie put out by Kino Classics from several years ago, Inherit the Wind, which I believe was 1960. Yeah. With Spencer Tracy, Frederick March, and Gene Kelly. This new one here has Jack Lemmon and George C. Scott and Beau Bridges and a lot of really great people. For those who don't know the story, it is about the Scopes monkey trial that happened here in my home state of Tennessee, where there was a teacher who wanted to who was teaching evolution in school, and the community did not like that. They wanted to teach that God had created the earth in 7 days and nothing else. So everything strictly based in religion. So this is that trial, and like being like whether this teacher should be like prosecuted for teaching evolution. It's a big controversy. They bring in competing lawyers from out of town representing both sides. And I mean, it's history, so you can look it up. I won't spoil history, I guess. But it's a really interesting movie and really great performances. This is directed by Daniel Petrie, who may not be as like a buzzy name as William Friedkin, but he is the director of A Raisin in the Sun. So he has had his fair share of like classic films as well. It doesn't match up to the old 1960s version, which I have seen and really enjoyed, but it's just a really nice, solid adaptation of the material, like from like a newer perspective. And I watched this last week with my wife, Jessica, and she compared it to the movies that she used to watch or in like school that the teacher would just put on. And it was just like a nice, solid drama. It wasn't like super artsy or anything. It was just like workhorse, solid drama. And she said it gave her really like warm feelings of nostalgia for like that youthful time. So if you're also wanting to recapture like your youthful school days, this might like unlock some like sense memory in your brain of just like being in like US history class maybe. So yeah, it's not flashy. It's straight down the middle, great acting, like middle of the road cinematography. It's not like crazy angles or anything. It's just like actors doing a really good job acting of like material that's really interesting. And the transfer, it's really solid. Just like the 12 Angry Men release, it's like not like a new 2K or 4K master, but it's just like a really nice looking release. There's a new commentary by Brian Reisman and Max Irby. And yeah, if you enjoy the material, if you enjoy these actors, you have to love Jack Lemmon. You have to love George C. Scott. I would recommend it wholeheartedly.
Yeah, that sounds great. And I do really love both of those actors. So that definitely is going to be a must-own for me as well. This isn't a great transition, but Magnum PI.
Yes.
The complete series. So this thing weighs what feels like a ton. So I'll show it off really nicely here. That's the front.
Tom Selleck
side. Yeah. And I will say that, so this does actually have some nice features. I was really disappointed with I Dream of Jeannie that it just didn't really have many, like bonus material, but it seems that, so this was licensed from Universal. So I believe that this was stuff that, like some of this, I believe was ported over from maybe some previous releases, but like it does have some new interviews for the set. And I will say that I believe that it also comes from, I'm not 100% sure, but it's probably a safe bet that Universal probably did this transfer. So it does look pretty nice on Blu-ray. It's not spectacular, but it certainly looks better than you probably would see on like DVD or like even streaming. And yeah, so there is another look at so I've said that I'm not a big fan of these sort of cases. You have to be extremely careful when you open them. but that's what's going on inside. I know like these have a tendency to like break pretty easily, so just be super careful. Like I'm not going to mess with it too much because I don't want to press my luck, but you get the point.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's it's cheesy fun. I feel like it's sort of like the ultimate sort of like escapist show. I think that's kind of cool on the inside. So yeah, I'm still sort of working my way through the entire series, but it is interesting. And like I said, I do like that they were able to sort of port over some of the previous stuff, like the commentaries are really cool, and some of the newer stuff, like the interviews. So yeah, if you are a fan, it's I feel like worth checking it out because it does look really nice. And again, the big selling point is some of the new features. That's exclusive to this Blu-ray.
Awesome. That's a show I shamefully have never seen, even though I do love Tom Selleck. So it seems like something that would be right up my alley. So I'm probably gonna have to like look into that.
Yeah, it's definitely I mean, it's cheesy. That's the best way to describe it. It's just fun, stupid, sort of just turn your brain off kind of watch.
Yeah. Speaking of, this isn't exactly that, but these are the type of releases or type of films that I think are perfect for like a lazy like Saturday afternoon watch. And I'm not going to go too deep into like the packaging because you've already provided a fantastic unboxing video of this. But this is the new Shawscope released from Arrow Video. And what I want to do here is I think I'm going to talk about this release over several episodes. And I want to focus on the first three films. I'll still give you off, showing off the packaging a little bit. If you haven't seen Mike's video, like go look at the full unboxing because I don't have that kind of time right now. And these videos are already long enough. But I did want to go a little bit deeper into like the individual films because I think they each deserve it. And I'm finally able to work my way through this. The first film is King Boxer, which is a film that whenever I started it, I got very excited because I understood that this is where Quentin Tarantino got a lot of his musical stings from Kill Bill. And I was like, ooh, that's really fun. The plot itself, it's about these two rival studios. Yeah, I guess you can call them studios, who are like they're working towards fighting together or fighting against each other in this tournament. But they're like throughout, there's a lot of like interesting nuances to it. And like there's this like central figure who he's like at the beginning, he's like trying to get like drafted to like the evil side, but he never goes over there. And there's like all this retaliation to like against his like studio. And it's a really great film. It's like my favorite of the three so far. It's a really like the ending action scene. There are better ones in this set, but it's like very like mysterious and tension filled, and you get some nice like eye plucks and everything. It's a lot of fun. You'll have to forgive me for like reading off a script for this, or kind of a script, because there's this release is packed with so much. This release specifically comes from a 2K restoration of the 4K original camera negative. It has a new audio commentary. It has a really great film appreciation piece by Tony Raines. It has an interview, like vintage interviews with the director, with the stars. It has the first of a three-part release with called Cinema Hong Kong Kung Fu. It's a documentary. It's really great. So yeah, that is King Boxer. And the second release, also all of these releases have newly translated subtitles so that like they're most accurate, which I'm really glad that Arrow did, because some like releases of like these martial arts movies from like Hong Kong, they really just, you feel like these subtitles are just butchered. So it's really cool. The next is The Boxer from Shantung. Apologies if that is not the correct pronunciation. This one is interesting because it's more of like a gangster film. It's about a guy who comes to town to like for like fame and fortune, but he gets sucked into this like seedy underworld. And there's like some like little romances in here and stuff, but mainly it's just like a really gritty, really long gangster film. It's like 2 hours and 15 minutes. But what I really like about this one especially is like it ends with like the most like insane fight. It's like comparable to like a more realistic like I think it's like the House of Blue Leaves in Kill Bill Volume 1. It's just like a 15-minute fight scene of just people just kicking the crap out of one another. Like everyone's bloody and dead by the end and like beaten up and people are stabbed, and it is wild. I loved it. It was a lot of fun. This one also comes from a 2K restoration. It has an interview with some stars. Assistant director John Woo. Yeah, you might recognize that name. It has a conversation with the stars from a Shaw Brothers reunion that was from 2007. So that's a lot of fun. And I know I'm talking a long time, but final film, the third film is Five Shaolin Masters. So this one here, which it takes kind of the concept of like five masters of different martial arts forms who must come together with each of their specific skills and band together to seek revenge on the people who have like burned down their dojo, basically. I'm not sure if it's called a dojo, if that's culturally inappropriate. I'm sorry. I think it's a dojo. It's a lot of fun. Once again, the ending action sequence goes on forever, but it's like people using different martial arts forms, like to just kick the crap out of one another. These films aren't like super full of depth, and this is probably the like lesser of these three films, but it's still a lot of fun. This one comes from a new HD master. There's a visual essay piece from Tony Raines. It's just a really interesting movie. And so like just the first three movies from this set have really just given me so much fun. This is a great release. I'm looking forward to continue talking about these more over the next couple of weeks. And if you haven't gotten this set yet, what's wrong with you? It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, it is such a fantastic set. And I will link the unboxing video in the description.
Definitely, you did a good job with that one. I love that.
So my last, but certainly favorite release is the Godfather Trilogy 4K. So yeah, these are like amazing films. Even part 3 is still pretty awesome. So I will give you a better look. See, they come in these little like slip cases. What's kind of cool is each film like has some nice art, has a quote, and then also this does have a digital copy that is housed in the part 1. Obviously not in there, but it will be in there. So yeah, the other thing I wanted to point out was, so part 3 is the newer recut, the Coda cut. And if you're like, but oh my gosh, I like the theatrical cut, or I like the other cut, they got you covered. So there is a 4K disc of Part 3, the theatrical and the 1991 cut. Yeah, a lot. And then, of course, the bonus disc is also housed in, obviously, the bonus disc case. But I just wanted to point out that, I thought it was interesting that they included this, not in the Part 3 disc, but in the bonus. So that's some good info to have, which, I will say kudos to Paramount for, not cramming their disc full of features, as far as like on the actual film disc, which, they're definitely utilizing a lot of space. These are fantastic looking. I've seen these films on like VHS, DVD, Blu-ray, and now 4K Ultra HD. And yeah, it's spectacular. So all the features from the Legacy collection, which is like the previous release, has been ported over. And there are some really cool new features, including a rare home movie that is making its debut. It's like the first time it's been available to the public. So that's really exciting. There is also a feature on like just the restoration and like what Paramount actually did to restore these movies, which, as someone that is really interested in like film preservation and our archivists and stuff, like it's really fascinating. Like I'm such a nerd when it comes to stuff like that. So if you'd like stuff like that, there you go. So yeah, it's pretty definitive. I mean, I am such a huge fan of these films. It was really interesting checking out the recut of Part 3, which is kind of considered like the black sheep of the series. I think that, without spoiling anything, I think the recut of 3 is certainly a step up. It's really interesting how, some like trimming and some toying around with the editing can kind of drastically alter the mood and the feeling of the film. So yeah, I don't know what else there is to say. I mean, it is The Godfather. It is like the Godfather of Godfathers.
That's why there's the phrase. That's why we have the phrase. It's the pinnacle.
And it's such a nice looking release. Some people might not be really crazy about this cover, but I think it's nice. I think it's nice and clean and simple. I think it's really cool because it's like a rose, but it kind of looks like blood. It's awesome. It's also awesome to see like just experiencing these movies again. It's such an epic like tale. Even the third film, I feel like wraps everything up really nicely. So yeah, buy it. It's amazing. Paramount really, I'm very cynical, but I will say that it's so cool that like Paramount has not only ported over everything else, but like it is giving you new things. And so to me, it's not like a cash grab. It's like they really put a lot of love in this release. So there's also a deluxe release if you're like hardcore into this. But if you're like just wanting the movies and not the like extra stuff, yeah. And now it also is worth noting that if you don't have a 4K, so these do not have a Blu-ray with it. Like it is strictly the 4K discs, but they do have a Blu-ray release, like a standalone of the trilogy, if you want to go that route. Like if you don't have a 4K yet. So that's really nice that they made that like available as well. So
yeah, so you can still get the new restorations.
Yeah, and I know that there's some people that aren't completely sold on 4K, and that's fine if you're not, but like I really wouldn't want to view it any other way. And yeah, it's just it looks and sounds amazing. Like this booming iconic score, it's so amazing to like hear it in like surround, and like it just gives you chills. So yeah, I feel like that's kind of like the best thing to sort of end this video on. With that, I thank everybody for hanging out with us and checking out these awesome releases. If you like this video, please consider giving a like and subscribe, and consider leaving a comment, like telling us what you think is your favorite release, or what's an upcoming release that you're really excited for. So we hope to hear from you. Thanks.